As the 20th century approached, innovation, expansion, and optimism seemed passwords to America's future. In 1898, America flexed its muscles as a world power, declaring war against Spain.
White regiments and black regiments fought shoulder to shoulder. It was glorious. We officers could our black heroes. John Pershing.
Black Americans embraced the war with optimism.
We left our homes, wives, mothers, sisters, and friends to break down that infernal race prejudice and to have a page in history ascribed to us.
But fighting infernal race prejudice would be far more difficult than fighting Spain. In 1898, the United States Supreme Court, having already allowed Southern states the right to segregate blacks, now approved denying them the vote. In the same year, most blacks living in the South, man's land, charging less than $1 a day. In 1898, 101 black men were lynched in the South. But one southern city, nestled comfortably along the Cape Fear River of North Carolina, seems to have escaped the worst excesses of the Jim Crow years. Wilmington seemed to be a racially moderate city, a condition brought about by economic prosperity and a strong black and white middle class.
The best feeling among the races prevailed in Wilmington. The Negro and his white brother walked their beats on the police force. White and black committeemen sat down together in the same council. White and black teachers taught in the same school. David Fulton.
It was a booming place for African Americans. They simply felt as if they were making a contribution to society 33 years after they were freed through Emancipation Proclamation.
It was a prospering African American community in the largest city of the state. They had attained some success in the middle classes. There was a growing mercantile class.
What happened was a number of blacks were able to transfer skills that they learned in slavery to private enterprise. On the plantation, they were blacksmiths, they were carpenters, they were teamsters. They had all these different skills that they learned in slavery, which they weren't being compensated for. But now they were able to take those skills and transfer them into business, and that's what happened.
That first generation out of slavery sort of bought the dream. They thought that they would get education, they would rise, they would be successful, and that that kind of performance would prove their manhood and womanhood.
One successful Wilmington African American was Alex Manley, publisher of the Wilmington Daily Record, the only black daily newspaper in North Carolina.
He says his relationship with whites is good, and there's every reason to believe that. White merchants advertise extensively in the Daily Record, but he clearly sees the future place of black people as being full equality. There's no question about that. And he's constantly encouraging them to become equals economically, politically, socially, culturally.
There were many whites who were poverty-stricken, but there were many blacks who had very good-paying jobs. Of course, they had their carriages and their nice dress, and they would shop. And they felt as if they had come a long way. And they were beginning to feel themselves in a prideful sort of way, and I think to a degree in an arrogant sort of way. So there we had much tension created. How dare you think that you are so much better than I am?
It's partly economic competition, but it's also a grave concern that black people are beginning to feel the equals to white people.
White people became quite alarmed because if they were going to subjugate black people, they had to prove that no black person was capable of the things that these people were doing.
Blacks had attained a good deal of power in Wilmington in 1898. They were the majority of the population and of the voting population.
Many of the blacks at that time held elected positions and very prominent municipal positions. They were appointed by the Republicans. Most of the Republicans at that time were black.
Justices of the peace, aldermen, magistrates, firemen, public health workers, even though these might not appear to be very high prestige positions, at least they were examples to the black community and particularly to the youth of what black people could be.
Whites were fearful that the African Americans would begin to control the city of Wilmington since they were in the majority.
We have to look at two very basic issues. You have to look at politics and you have to look at economics. And whoever controls those two are in power. And it was all about power. It was about political power and economic power.
In local elections of 1898, the Democratic Party, the party of white supremacy, was determined to end black political power in North Carolina.
It will be the meanest, dirtiest campaign since 1996. The slogan of the Democratic Party, from the mountains to the sea, will be but one word. Daniel Sh Democrat.
They argue that only the Democrats can save North Carolina from what they call Negro rule.
Furnifold Simmons, who would go on to be a United States Senator, Charles Aycock, who would go on to be governor of North Carolina, and Josephus Daniels, who was editor of the Raleigh News and Observer. The three of them got together in a hotel and hatched a campaign that would talk about white women being endangered by black men holding office.
The white press portrayed blacks as monsters, representing them as an incubus, a mythical figure that raped women while they slept.
White women appeared in parades, on floats, in white dresses, holding up signs saying, "Protect us."
Deliberately fueling racial fires, a white newspaper published an inflammatory speech given by a leading Georgia feminist, Rebecca Felton.
If it requires lynching to protect woman's first possession from ravening human beasts, then I say lynch 1,000 Negroes a week, if it is necessary.
Manly's blood boils, and he dashes off his own editorial that conservative black people in Wilmington considered to be a truth unwisely said.
Our experience with poor white women in the country teaches us that the women of that race are not any more particular in the manner of clandestine meetings with colored men than white men with colored women. You leave your goods out of doors and then complain because they are taken away. Alex Manly.
The crowning thing that hit the white psychic nerve center was the very last sentence of the editorial, where he says, if white men continue to initiate sex with black women, sooner or later white women are going to start to do the very same thing with black men. And that was not the political thing to say. That just drove white men absolutely crazy.
A former Confederate officer, Alfred Waddell, called for violence.
We are resolved to change the conditions under which we live if we have to choke the Cape Fear River with carcasses.
White men appeared in rallies all over the state wearing red shirts, which was sort of a pre-fascist kind of outfit that they had borrowed from South Carolina.
White employers are threatening to fire black employees who register to vote. So there's massive economic intimidation going on.
An organization of black women urged black men to vote or risk disgrace.
Every Negro who refuses to register this next Tuesday in order that he may vote, we shall make it our business to deal with him in a way that shall not be pleasant. He shall be branded as a white-livered coward who would sell his liberty.
Blacks meant to win by legal means. Whites by any means.
We shall win tomorrow if we have to do it with guns. If we have not the votes to carry the election, we must carry it by force.